class today, and welcome to another class of Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim Kuf Nun Gimel. We are in Orach Chaim 153, learning the Shulchan Aruch and the Mishna Berurah, and we are continuing in the laws of the synagogue. Today, we're continuing in 153, discussing these rules as applying to the actual physical building and when it is required to follow through with a project, when you can alter the project, when you can change the trajectory of the usage of the funds, when you can alter funds, when the funds may be used for another purpose. Today, we're going to talk about this dude named Ruvain, and he, this guy Ruvain. Well, let's talk about Ruvain. He's got some land. So Ruvain's got some land. He says, "This land I'm giving to you to build a shul. You're going to build a shul, okay?" And it says that the non-Jews don't want to let them build a shul, right? Which was pretty common for a millennia in Europe. So that's how it is, and so they're not going to give him permission to do that. Permission denied. He goes down to the permitting office, and they say, we've denied your petition to use this land as a synagogue based on the simple fact that we just don't want another one. Okay? So the community is like, well, they want to build a place for a Talmud Torah, like a Beis Medrash. And Reuven says, no, I did not dedicate this plot of land to be used for that. Okay? So Reuven can't go back on this thing. So he's basically made a neder. Okay? He's made a vow. I'm going to give this land for basic necessities. Now, if Reuven wasn't living there, then the people could change this. Okay? If he lives in the city, they can't change his decision, especially if he's standing there and protesting it, okay? Unless there is what's called, the Mechaber calls it a chaver ir. Unless there is a community group, because everything that they do goes through them. And the Ramah says that this is the chaver ir and sheva tovei ir, that this community group is the same thing as having the 7 people run the community. Okay, so why can't they change it? Mishna Berurah explains. He says because once he's made the statement, this land is going for basic Knesset, it's like saying this money is going for tzedakah. That's all it's going for. So if he doesn't live in that city, then the community, we said, can go ahead and change it. Why? Because they could change it even to anything. They can work into a park. Because we already learned that because you appoint something as being used for a shul, that we say Hazman alav milsahi, appointing it for something or saying that it's meant for a purpose and not using it for that doesn't matter. Okay, and that was back. We saw that in Sif Ches, number 8. So now here he is standing, kvetching, screaming, crying, kicking, spitting, whatever it is he's doing. I don't wanna. Doesn't matter. Okay. And he didn't make a condition on it. That would have been a double condition, okay? Which we'll learn about at some other time, which is what's called a Tanai Kafel, that it basically says, it shall be for this. And if this does not happen, this is the consequence. You would need that for such a case. So if he doesn't do that, there's no consequences to not following through and building a shul. Okay? He should have said, if you're not going to build a shul, I get the land back. Okay? So basically, that's not what happened here. But if he lives there, they don't have permission, which is to say that he could stop them from building a Beis Medrash, even though it's just as holy as building a shul, because everyone has to consent, everyone has to agree, and so therefore, since you need that would work. That's how it's going to have to work. Now we learned earlier in If Vav in Halacha number 6 that when you're using the same high level of kedusha, that you can go ahead and do that, okay? And even if you don't have a group like the Sheva Tovei Yair to manage that for you. Why? Because no one's making a complaint. However, in this case, he's making a complaint. Now, Magen Avraham asks a question. He says, listen, the laws of Nadar are written in Yoredeah and in Siman, Rishon, and Test, 259. And in the second halacha in there, it says that the owner of a place cannot stop somebody from building a base medrash. Okay, you just can't, because it's the same level of kedusha. Okay, so he tries to fetch a way out. The Pri Megadim says something that he doesn't like that answer, and he just says, "I don't know the answer." So that's just something. It's an interesting point being made over here. So it sounds like you could, but from here it sounds like you cannot. Okay, so therefore they have to be strict. Now, if you want to change this thing, okay, so Ruvain can't go ahead and make any changes himself either. So it's not just the people can't; he can't change it either. Okay, and so because the non-Jewish government is also saying you can't change it to something else, you're going to have to take some time to change his opinion about building it into a shul. Okay. And also, we said at the end that you have the Sheva Tovei Yair, you also not only have to have the 7 elders or 7 council members there to make the presence, but it also has to be, we've made the public announcement that Mishnah adds. All right. Number 15. A person is not allowed to prohibit his portion in the synagogue, neither in his seat nor in the books. And if he does try to do that, that statement is not viable. Okay, so whether he tries to prohibit the building, I have my name on it. There's a really cool story about a guy who wanted to make some decisions about a shul because he had his name on the building. They went to the Rashba about it, and he says, it's not his shul. He dedicated the money for it. It's not his anymore. So why? Because the Gaonim made this rule that otherwise every single person would walk around prohibiting seats to people. That's not your seat. That's not your seat. That's not your seat. Okay, so even though technically everyone has a portion in it, and technically, you have a share in it, which means you could answer a very small portion of each and every seat to a person, but they made a rule that this wouldn't apply, and they basically mevatel your ownership rights. Okay. So otherwise, you can prohibit an entire synagogue because you're not allowed to go ahead and pick and choose the spot that you want to prohibit. Okay. So it would be impossible to use that shul. Halacha 16. Someone who lends his house to be a shul, and now they're fighting. Okay, who are they fighting with? One guy. Okay, they can't prohibit the shul from him unless the entire community is tossed out all at once. The Ramah says, and that specifically applies where it was meant to just be a synagogue stam. But if you make a condition that anytime he wishes to make an objection, he could make some objection to having the shul there. Okay. Or he didn't actually specifically lend it to them. He just allows people to come in and daven with him. And so then when he wants to kick them out of the shul, he can. So those are 2 ways to get around it. So what's the problem over here? So the Mishnah explains that there's a cherem of Rabbeinu Gershom. That's why you're not allowed to do that. Similar to the ones we just mentioned. And the reason is because they were concerned about the amount of embarrassment, humiliation a person would feel as a result of being banned from the synagogue, right? It kind of sucks, like being banned from, any place. It would just not be a good feeling. Okay? And so that's what they were saying over here, which is not the case of when you're saying everybody to leave, right? If we can't all be nice, then everyone has to leave, right? Either you bring for one, if you bring for one, you bring for everyone. So you can't kick him out, but you can kick out the community out of there. Okay, because you only said to them, "Hey, you're going to come and daven here for right now." Okay, and this is if you look in Yoredeah in Siman 221, 6 and 7. Okay, you learn those rules about how if it's for a certain amount of time you're designating it. You're not really releasing it to them as a lending. Okay, you're not really lending it to them. So that seems to be how it goes. But if you don't really lend it to them 100%, so you could go ahead and make a complaint about any single person. So it depends on how you set it up. So the best way to set this up would be to basically say everyone's welcome to come and daven here, and and then if someone misbehaves, you then say we don't want you here anymore. This is my house. Okay. Halacha 17 is someone who has a shul in his house and it's been there for a while. Then the synagogue can't go ahead and change it to something else's house. Okay? Why? Because what we don't want to have happen is we want to kind of keep the peace. It's like a Darchei Shalom type thing. We don't want people to say about the Baal Bayis, the homeowner himself, that that they're not good people. We want them to think good things about that. So therefore, they didn't want to say they didn't want the community to come and daven there. Okay. You still are allowed to go ahead and take the shul somewhere else. Okay, so if you want to make this building something else, whatever, unless there's some other way around it. So let's see what it says. Now, what's the way around it? So if only a part of the congregation wants to go daven somewhere else, fine. Okay. So especially if someone else is already having another minyan elsewhere, and therefore you're not ruining the shul in his house thing. But if a large group is learning in one house and they've been there for a while, now they want to go learn in a second house for a couple of months, they can't make those changes. Okay, so again, just being nice to the guy. So what does it mean to change it? It also means that if there's some type of honor that's being presented to you as a result of this, or a mitzvah, you cannot remove that honor or that mitzvah from him unless you have a real claim against it, right? So you have to make some real claim. It doesn't state what those claims are. You have to have a real claim against it. And it's not, it has to be things that are not things that are regular issues. Even things that only happen, that could come in at any unspecified time. Okay, and so that would be the same rule as well. Now the later decisors write that if there's people who go ahead and determine that they're going to bury the dead somewhere in a certain spot, they cannot go ahead and not allow other people to go ahead and bury in that same spot. Okay, so because everyone wants to do a mitzvah of this. Now, if there are specific Chevra Kadishas that are appointed to handle these things, so then you have to go ahead and go through them. Okay? And so therefore, if there's a requirement to give it to a certain Chevra Kadisha, that's also another thing that you have to honor. So now if they want to switch to another house, Mishna says, as these are both cases of if it's in a civic person's house. But if they want to build a basic Knesset, they don't have, there's no Darchei Shalom issue in this case at all. Just be like, we're building a big shul. That's it. Okay, now moving on to the stuff in the shul. We're going to talk about some rules about the stuff in the shul. We're almost done with this sim. I don't think we're going to finish it today, but we're almost done. All right, there are those who say that the holy vessels that are made out of silver and are regularly brought to the synagogue on the Yom Tovim, on the holidays, they cannot go ahead and take them out and use them for regular stuff and sell them. And the community is allowed to hold on to them until after the passing of the person who donated it. Now, so what are the things that you could possibly bring? You could bring candelabras. He doesn't say what kind of candelabras these are, whether it's for Hanukkah or other days, but even to light in the shul stam is what he implies, or nice things to hang on the Sefer Torah. You can't just go ahead and use them for something else, because they didn't say that they were given to you for any other purpose other than to use it in the synagogue. You were told, this is being donated for you to use in the shul. So you can't go ahead and sell it and say, now we can buy a brand new set of, shas. right? Buy another set of shas. The old shas is getting beat up. We'll sell this thing and buy something else. Nope, can't do that. Okay? Because as soon as they're used for this, they become holy. And the Magen Avraham says that nowadays, we assume the condition is that they belong to the people who donated them, so they weren't really dedicating them wholeheartedly. They were kind of maintaining some of their ownership, and therefore, if they bring them to shul, they're bringing them for the purposes of attaching this custom of being able to go ahead and renege upon it and use it for something else. Nonetheless, it seems better to make a condition explicitly saying that if we want to go ahead and take it and use it for something else, we could use it for that. That would be nicer. Okay. Halacha 19. Okay. So halacha 19 over here, still talking about utensils to be used for the shul. If there's someone, there is an opinion that states that if there was someone from whom you found after their passing, that they wrote in their will that they're going to give all of their utensils to the local synagogue, but it's just a piece of paper and there's no witnesses to this fact, and he didn't personally bring them to the community, we assume that they're still dedicated. Okay. So how do we find it? You go to his house, you're going through his stuff, and you're like, oh, here's something in his handwriting that says he's dedicating all the stuff to the shul, right? His whole set. He has 87 volumes of the the Schottenstein. That's what I was looking at. The Schottenstein Art Scroll Gemaras, right? Like tons of volumes. Okay. Someone's dedicating a full set of the Masivta Shas. Masivta has a great Shas. It's all in Hebrew, but it goes through so much stuff. The Perushim, the additives, it's an amazing set. Wonderful to add to any base measure. Now, it becomes holy. Why? Because he wrote it down, and therefore, for sure, he made this statement out loud. Okay? And the Magen Avraham says over here that there is a case in Chosh Bishpat in Siman Pei Aleph. Okay? And these are something that's to go look at. It doesn't sound like it's clear that this would be the case. Okay, so different people disagree with it, and so therefore one would have to go see the Shach over there in Siman Pei Aleph, and also look at Chosh Mishpat, Siman Reish and Hey in the Pesach Tshuva. So not so simple. Okay, so this halacha not so simple. Let's see how we do it on time over here. Let's see if we can finish this. We have only one long one coming up. Let's see if we can finish this. All right, to those who say that Sefer Torah, that a person said belonged to his fathers, okay, the community can't hold on to it against his wishes, okay? So Mishnah Berurah explains that it's his, and it belongs to his fathers, but it's laying in the shul. The community can't stop him from taking it, okay? And he can't say that for sure he was trying to make it part of the synagogue, and it's not the same thing. What's this? Oh, 73 volumes. Okay, I said 87. Thank you for correcting me on that. Okay. So this is different. So this rule in 20 is different than what we said in 18. Because you can't go ahead and take it for another purpose, like some secondary purpose. But a Sefer Torah, I can leave it in shul that they should read it, or I'll take it home and I'll read it. Okay. And sometimes people only live there for a temporary purpose, okay? And then eventually he's like, all right, I'm going to take it home now. So even if it's still wearing, public garments, and the covering is that, and the crown is from the Sibur or whatever, okay? We can't say that he doesn't want it back, okay? It's always his, and that's been the custom forever, that you can just simply take off the covers of the Sefer Torah and put it somewhere else, okay? Even if singular people went ahead and did it. Okay, so the Magen Avraham says that the minhag is to sell the Sefer Torah, even if it's just meant to be given to the synagogue for reading from it. And he says, since this was our custom, therefore it's also part of the original condition. Okay, unless you make another condition. Okay, so therefore it doesn't belong to the community. However, it seems that according to everyone, you cannot be strict about this. And nonetheless, it's better that you actually make an actual condition about it. It's not going to be there forever. Okay? So they can't hold on to it, even if there are witnesses who claim that it was given to them. Why? You can't say that because they considered nogea beidus, meaning it's considered they themselves have an inherent benefit to say no, it belongs to the community because they'll benefit from it. So they're testifying about their own benefit. Okay. And even if they want to say we will never ever read from the Sefer Torah, okay, which is actually this is a case actually in Choshen Mishpat, Siman Yilches, where the Dayanim might have another problem with the Sefer Torah. They're like, well, just won't daven in that shul, we'll daven in another shul. Okay, so they could go ahead and do that as well. If there's a far out community where the community doesn't have a Sefer Torah and they read from a person's individual Sefer Torah, and then they themselves buy a Sefer Torah, and the single guy is like, hey, listen, we read this Sefer Torah regularly. That's not considered a chazaka. Okay. So he's saying that really this should, nonetheless, you shouldn't reduce the honor to the Sefer Torah of a single person. Okay. Let's see. I think we'll have to. Can we rush through some of these? Let's get through. Let's see what we can get through. I don't want to rush too much because we have to have two more. I want to finish it. I don't want to rush. Oh, all right. Let's try it. Let's get through this. All right. One should not buy covers for the Sefer Torah that were bought for personal use, then use it for holy use. Okay, and the Ramah adds that it's also prohibited to go ahead and make Sefer Torah from money that was handed to a prostitute or that was transferred in exchange for a dog, anything that's for a mitzvah, okay? Even for the synagogue or for a Sefer Torah. And that's only if those profits themselves, okay, from the prostitute herself. But if money was given to her, then we're going to go ahead and take and buy a mitzvah thing, and that's not considered to be foreign. The prohibition is that the prohibition is that money was given for the purposes of prostitution, and if these are single women who set themselves up for this thing, then one could go ahead and accept money from them, and then use that to go spend on other stuff. So what does this even mean? So the Mishnah explains, okay, so every sacred thing that was not designed for the sacred thing, but for a regular thing, we're going to learn later on. We're going to see right here, that you have to see that it has to be made for the person with mitzvah. So it's like the rack for the Talesim, okay? And there's a book, Beis Hillel, and in the Eliyah Rabbah, they agree that even a talus rack has to be made for, is not made for a holy purpose, but it's only a regular purpose, okay? Like it could have been holding socks originally. But people shouldn't do that. The Taz says in Yoredeya 282, that it has to be meant for a sacred purpose, but if it's being used in the shul for a regular everyday purpose, that's fine. Like it's going to hold your paper towels, that's fine. But even the Magen Ram's like, no. But he says you can be even more lenient. And the Magen Ram himself says that it's only when it's left as it is, but if it's changed somehow and made something new, that would be acceptable. Okay? Yeah, so that's what he says over there. So that's his statement over here. Let's get to the last one over here. Okay, lost my place here. 1 second. Okay, so a person who regularly gets involved with a mitzvah, right? So he's regularly doing glila, okay? But he only has to pay for it. But now he's now he's behind on his bills and he doesn't have the money to pay for this honor all the time. And he wants to continue doing it, okay? So, in a case, so again, so they gave it to somebody else, but he got his money back. He wants the mitzvah again. So, if he gave it to the second guy, the first one had the ability to been giving the money and then didn't do it. Um, you know, and so then he lost that. He lost that mitzvah. But if he did not have money for it and they gave it to somebody else until he got his money back, then that's fine. Okay. So the Mishna explains that he had permission from the community to do this initially, and it said, and so the Radvaz actually adds over here that even if they didn't give him permission, just that he was always doing it, then that's fine too. Like the same guy goes up for what's it called, for gabbai. Okay. So if he could afford it, so meaning that it's not because of some type of thing that made him lose his money, he just stopped giving. So then he loses it. Now, if they agree to get the second guy, so it's not just have to agree to it, but it's that he had enough money to do it as well, and just didn't want to give the money. Then he loses that. However, if he gets money back and still wanted to do it, then that's fine. Okay. And you can't even make the argument that this guy's a bigger Talmud Chacham, you should give it to him. This other guy is an ignoramus. No, he wants to do his mitzvah. You can do that. Okay. But if you have a proof that he has given up on it, then he loses it. The poskim also write that so too that a person who's a big donor that now lost a lot of money, and they put somebody else to be in charge of, let's say, the tzedakah or the group or whatever. And then after the bad event passes, he comes back to his status again. You shouldn't try to interfere with having the person. The first person, you should inform them that it was only temporary. But you shouldn't be obnoxious to the second person. He stepped up, okay? So when a person was removed, okay, that's a nice dot. Person was removed because they were misbehaving. Okay, even if by accident, they can't go back to their position again. Okay, fine. The person doesn't go back again. The Eli Rabbah says is not sure about that case. That it's only by a murderer in that case. So, however, it seems to be that people could be lenient. All right, so now we have finished 153. Thank you for joining me. I have to run, but thank you for staying with me to finish off this Siman. Wonderful laws. I will talk to all of you again very soon. Take care.